Great. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April webinar. My name is Sam Suber, and I'm the chair of the Professional Development Committee. Today's webinar is titled When Life Gives You Lemons, Bake a Cake, presented by Thomas Mantzakides of Morton College. I hope I didn't butcher your name. I also want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded. With that, I'll let Thomas take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thanks again, Sam and the Professional Development Committee for giving me the opportunity to present today in regards to a very significant event that has been taking place here on Morton College campus. That involves our transition to a new home as far as the library is concerned, and also the building of a new one-stop center. We'll get to that moving along. So yeah, we envisioned this process as in three phases: a past, a present, and a future. So hence the three tiers. And of course, when you get something that you might not be thrilled about, when life hands you lemons, you make the most of it. And in our in our case, we like to think we're making a cake. So a little bit of background as to who we are. We're in Cicero, which is a western suburb just right outside of Chicago. We are the second oldest community college in the state. So we have our 100-year anniversary coming up in a couple of years. Here you see our statistics. We've got about 5,400 credit-seeking students. Our demographics, we are mostly a Hispanic serving institution, 84% of our students. So we have 5 full-time positions at present. At present, we don't have a full-time director. We have an interim director. In addition to the 5 full-time positions, we have part-time assistants, two library assistants, and also 2 student assistants. And we also have help desk staff. Okay, so let's get right into the first tier of the cake, and by putting in a nutshell here, the 5 previous years of the library's history. So we first felt the winds of change back in 2016. That was when the second floor, so we were 2 floors, as you see here on your screen. We had the first floor, obviously, and also the second floor was full of books, 20,000 or so, and we had to clear those out. It took us about the summer and fall of that year to clear everything out because administration had plans to repurpose that floor into the Student Success Center. In addition to books, we also had our group study rooms there, which were widely popular. Because they were popular and because there was some pushback from students, it was a little bit of a contentious issue. The group study rooms remained, so other departments, other office, those group rooms did not become office space for other workers on campus. They remained group study rooms, but they were open. We weren't mediating them. We weren't scheduling them. We weren't basically overseeing them. And yeah, we put in a lot of work to clear out a lot of books since all our collection was now on that first floor. So briefly to go over about 3 or 4 years here, we had a new director, Michael Cott. He started March 2017. Full-time librarians were hired later in the year. Up to this point, we had mostly part-time librarians. So there was, some would stay a while, but there was kind of a pretty high turnover rate. We felt by going to a full-time librarians, we would have a stronger presence on campus and on the community. People would know who we are. We'd have set schedules, and we'd have kind of a stake in what's going on campus. So we made our presence felt by holding events, monthly movie nights with refreshments, events like Constitution Bingo, which were fun, and students would come aboard and play. And of course, poetry contests, which do on an annual basis every April. We expanded our social media presence. We got on Instagram finally. We had a part-time worker who's no longer with us, but she was really good with creating fun and engaging posts, which would let people know of what was going on at the library. We also invested in physical tangential things like hotspots and digital cameras, which we call the Library of Things. So in addition to those, we also purchased medical equipment that could circulate to students in our nursing and physical therapy departments. We had to add digital resources, and we did. We added Overdrive, so we jumped on the ebook and audiobook craze. We got onto lip chat, so we could be available and accessible to our patrons without having them come physically into the library. Um, a cafe was reopened, which uh, had been there for a while, and it had closed down, and it was just being used as kind of a study space, an open study space. But the cafe, we were proud to have that reopen because it gave students in our special needs program, our Skills for Daily Living course, a chance to develop and expand their life enrichment skills. These students have mild to moderate learning delays, so we felt like we were helping out the community by having them be part of the library and provide services and like coffee and snacks that would bring more students into the space. And finally, we opened up our borrowing privileges for community members, which we had not had that service available. And we had been going out to community centers in the suburbs in this district, and we had gotten several people interested. We were giving out library cards, and people were coming in and purchase or borrowing stuff. But as soon, right when we got started and things were looking good, well, um, of course, no surprise there, but we got hit with a global pandemic, and we went into lockdown mode. March 2020, and we were shut down totally until June of that year. And I'm sure a lot of the libraries shared the same experiences, but we severely limited hours and services for over a year. Not coming back in person, really. I mean, we were kind of working from home. We were rotating, coming in, but we didn't kind of all get back together all as staff until this past summer, June 2021. So the start of 2021, that's when we started feeling those winds of change again. Our library director moved to a new department in February of that year. So our interim director role was filled with an internal staff member who reported to the associate provost. The associate provost resigned shortly thereafter, and that meant that our interim director reported again to our former library director, who is a dean. A lot of musical chairs, a lot of, you have to keep things straight by going to a scorecard, I'm sure. But in the middle of all this um, back and forth, we also were informed of the upcoming changes to campus. The library was to become the location of a one-stop center. So here on screen on the left is how things looked before. This is our home, our library, first floor. As you see here, the circulation desk, and we had, of course, computers all around. That was to transform into what you see on the right side in a future designed by architects, what's going to be called the one-stop center or one-stop shop. As you see there, the circulation desk is no longer there. It has been replaced by like a receptionist area where the receptionist would serve as triage to direct users to other departments that will now be taking up space in the new center. So about 5 departments were scheduled to move into this space. Really quick, there are academic advising, admissions and records, financial aid, counseling, and disability services, and also the cashier's office. So yeah, we were the largest space of any department, so it made sense to for us to be um, I guess targeted, if that's the right word, or that might be a harsh word. But it was, we had the space to kind of uh, move aside to go to another space to fit in, to fit all the other departments that were going to be centralized into this one location. And of course, the philosophy behind this, that had to do with centering the student experience, making things easier for students to access, cutting down on the bouncing from one department to the other one, giving people the go around, right? Um, our campus departments were all like in different buildings. It was like a maze, built like a maze. So people had difficult times going from one place to the other. When people would ask us where something is, we'd say you have to go up 2 flights of stairs, then make a left, and make another right. So it was frustrating. So that's why the user experience was centered here, so people would not have to bounce around from place to place. Again, this is how the library looked when facing south. On the left-hand side, we were the largest computer lab on campus. We had about 90 to 100 computers. We had a reference desk, as you see there. And of course, we had shelves and shelves of books. What you might not see there further back is kind of the entrance to the cafe. Around the corner, around that brown wall, we had also other collections like DVDs, family literature, photocopy machines. Of course, the future design removes all that. Again, one of the another part of the philosophy was to make an open collaborative space so students can congregate, they could get to know one another, could sit down, maybe enjoy a beverage or talk to a counselor. As you see here, that all those computers would make way that there would be a new department in that space. And I think in this artist rendering, it looks like the cashier's office would be in that space. And actually behind the reception desk area, there would be another department. I think admissions would be there. So being in the Zoom era, we had our first meeting, of course, online with administrators. That was a little over a year ago on March 30th. The original plan actually was to split that library space. So what I just showed you wasn't the original plan. The original plan involved dividing that first floor space into, so you go into the library, half of it on your right, for example, would be the library. On your left would be other departments. And some other departments would be upstairs on the repurposed second floor. But we made it well known to administrators that we had concerns. Of course, there was a size of the space for where we would fit everything, our collection and our computers. There was privacy issues, hours of operation. Of course, the libraries on campuses usually close a lot later than departments that provide student services that are usually like a business hour model, 9 to 5. And of course, shared space and office space. Sound would travel, of course. Where would we have our cubicles, have our office space? So a lot of those concerns were brought up in this meeting. Over the remaining, I guess, the next 6 or 7 months, we didn't hear much. We did hear that they were basically scrapping their original plans and we would be moving up to the second floor. So we kind of go back to where we were. I remember I mentioned the second floor was the group study rooms and where our books were. So basically our permanent home would be there. And in the meantime, though, that space was not ready for us. So we would have to move into a temporary space, and we'd have to do that. We were informed on October 14th. We'd have to do that by the end of the fall semester, which gave us about 2 months. Again, the timeline, December 10th, we'd have to be out of our library space. We'd have to move into a new a new space in Building C, which would be the former bookstore. Other departments that uh, were in several different buildings on campus would have to come all together to move into that second floor, our future library space, but it would be their temporary space from January to May 2022. So that's still ongoing as of right now. That construction is scheduled to end on May 27th, meaning all those departments would go downstairs to the first floor, which would be the new one-stop shop, right? In the meantime, we'd move from our temporary space, which I'll get to in a minute. I'd like to show where we're at right now. But we'd eventually go to the second floor of Building B, but the construction for that is to take place from July to September. So at the end of that phase, in September, end of September, what the current plans are, we would occupy the second floor of Building B, which would be our new home. Of course, with timelines, you have to take it with a grain of salt. There's always delays. So we sometimes believe we might be in our temporary space until the end of the calendar year. Of course, there's challenges involved with such a move. We had 2 months to make the move. We had to wait for that new space, a new temporary home to get ready. So that involved relying on other departments on campus, our facilities colleagues, to clear the space so we could move in. Because we could get a lot of books on trucks and move them over, but if we didn't have the space to move them to, it would be problematic. Um, so we had staff matters, it was the end of the year, so how things are here at Morton College is if you do not use your vacation time by the end of the calendar year, you lose it. So even though we needed hours of staff coverage to make this move, we also were cognizant of not losing our hard-earned vacation time. So we had to balance work with time off. And in the middle of all this, we also had a couple of new hires for student assistants and a part-time librarian. So in the middle of all this, by the way, this is taking place in the fall semester, last semester, which we were finally all back on campus. So we were all busy adjusting to the new normal when this hit us, right? So yeah, it was a stressful time. One benefit was we did get overtime pay because we were given the option to work overtime. So that meant we could work up to 11 hours a day, which that helped out during the holiday season was right around the corner. Of course, we could buy a lot of nice gifts for our friends and families, but at the same time, it was very exhausting. It was physically taxing, especially if you're like me and you're out of shape. I tried my best, but the good thing about the doing all this before the intersession break, which was 2 weeks, is during intersession when that finally came around, we went to our homes and we just vegged out in front of the TV, lying down on couches and beds for 2 weeks so we could relax after all this physical and strenuous labor. So we had a lot of decisions to make, of course, and we had only 2 months to make them. What to keep and what to weed. So we had about 30,000 books, and we would be keeping maybe half of that. So we relied on reports that were shared to us by Carly's staff. They were great in providing reports that showed our circulation numbers, gave us an idea of what material was popular so we could keep. Also, what other material that we had that may be unique to our iShare consortia, which we should keep. We also made a decision to keep everything that was rather new. So everything, we chose the year 2015, everything from 2015 and on that we had purchased would stay in the collection. And it involved a lot of decision making. There was judgment calls involved. Not everything was clear cut. So we had to make those decisions with knowing that the time was rapidly approaching that we would have to move out. We had to decide whether we should turn off lending in our Primo system. We decided that because a lot of our books were being moved into boxes that were not available to students, but they were not always being reflected in our catalog of their availability. We thought it would be easier to cut down on user frustration by just turning off lending while we put everything in order. At the completion of this project, we were going to finally address our records and our catalog. Um, we also, of course, had to decide what office furniture and materials were to be kept and what were to be discarded. Uh, Being here for several years, I accumulated a lot of papers. And, those of us that are pack rats finally had to face the truth. We had to make a decision about whether to keep or discard stuff that I like to procrastinate and not like to make decisions about, but that we were forced to confront these head on. And of course, the layout of the new space, what goes where. That was also something we had to put our heads together, had to have conversations about with each other and make the mutual beneficial decisions on. Before the work, again, you'll see computers. This kind of gives you an idea of a section of our library, which was um, heavily used, although in this picture, as you see, there's not too many students using the computers, but this also led to our cafe area. And on the right, the picture on the right, you'll see, well, it's not a surprise to all of you in libraries that we had several ranges of dearly curated over the years, and what we like to consider our friends, books. And of course, we'd have to make the tough decision to part with our friends. So that's how things looked around October of the past year. In the middle, during the work, we had to rely a lot on boxes. So we became probably Home Depot's favorite customer for a while there, because we were constantly, and it seemed like every other day we were contacting our facilities people to come up with boxes and with tape so we could tape them up. So we were sending emails left and right. We had to load books onto trucks. So we had a lot of trucks. We had to push them. We kind of worked up our muscles that way. Of course, we would take, for the weeded books, we would have to scan the barcodes onto spreadsheets. So we would eventually get to them when dealing with their place in our catalog. Again, we packed them up, and this is library staff doing this. We didn't have like outside staff helping out. We had to do the physical labor by putting these books into boxes. And we used our instruction room, or our one computer lab that we had. We had to shut down computers in there. We weren't doing any instruction sessions because we needed the space for storage. We had to put all the books there, the books that we weren't going to keep. We had to manage them in some place, and this was our centralized location for them. On the other hand, there were books, of course, that we wanted to keep. So those also kind of involved the same process, although we would load them onto trucks, of course, but we would have to wheel them over to our new space, which at least it was on the first floor, so we didn't have to worry about elevators or going up and down any stairs or things of that like that. And it was indoors, so we didn't have to, in the late fall, early winter, we didn't have to like put on coats or cover these up. We just went from one building to the next, which is connected internally. And we would have to reshelve these books onto our new shelves. So as you see the work continuing here.
Hey, Tom, I'm going to interrupt for just a second. Guillermo reminded me that we were amongst a bunch of supply issues, the supply shortage issues. So we had facilities running around, I think, getting boxes and tape and everything else. So that was a whole nother fly in the ointment. So.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, of course, you all know we had, during these COVID era times, we had a lot of supply chain issues, things that were not always readily available to us. But somehow, some way, we got what we wanted in place. And yeah, that room eventually became, well, neck deep in boxes there. We had to throw a lifeline to Guillermo there to rescue him. 911 was called, but he made it. No, I'm just joking. He's okay. So no injuries there. But eventually we boxed up about 16,000 books. Yeah, at least we got to, being a closed off room, we got to listen to some of our favorite music. Low, we didn't want to disturb other people outside. But this was a lot of labor. It involved several of us doing this from morning to night. Again, working those overtime hours. Eventually, what happened with these boxes were we worked with a outside vendor. They came with their staff and loaded these books onto trucks, which were taken away for resale. And I believe we get a portion of that, of any books that are being resold. After the work, yes, you'll see the empty, barren space there that still causes my heart to flutter at the sight of this. Remember this previous picture had some computers there. Of course, we had to remove all of those. Several of them were put on sale to community members. But yeah, we finally got to see a lot of the carpeting because it was always covered up by all those ranges of books. And yeah, as you see, the kind of dejecting, at least for me, it's a dejected view of empty shelves, emptied of their books. So I keep mentioning our new space. What was our new space? Well, that was to be the former bookstore. And our former bookstore went virtual in the fall of that year. So in September of 2021, the bookstore just went online. And that space was mostly cleared out. But again, as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of pieces of merchandise. So as you see here, there were a lot of shirts, a lot of other kinds of merchandise like mugs and hats that had the Morton College insignia that I'm sure is sold at a lot of college stores. Well, there was some delay there in getting those removed. So we couldn't, even though we had done our part in packing books that we wanted to keep onto trucks to move into this space, that space was not available. And we had to wait and wait and wait. And finally, we did get some help, and this space was cleared out. And this is what the space looked like after it got cleared out. The motto at Morton College is imagine what you can do. So we took that challenge upon ourselves to imagine what we could do. And to the credit of administration, they kind of gave us pretty much free rein to see how things would, to design how the new library space would look like. So yes, we started off with the bare bones, the foundations, and eventually, as you'll see in the next few pictures, we made a new home out of it. And that leads us to tier 2, the present. By the way, I just noticed that there's some chat, so I'm going to. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you, Guillermo. Guillermo's taking care of it because I wasn't paying attention to the chat. Thanks, Guillermo. We are on to tier 2, the present. So we're getting into the second section of our cake, and for our purposes, that stretched from December 13th to the present moment. December 13th was the day that we officially opened in our new space. And let's see here. Ta-da, this is how it looked like. But of course, that wasn't readily available on day one. It did take a lot of, again, labor, blood, sweat, and tears to make it look like this. But we were pretty, that on December 13th was the final, it was after finals week. It was the week leading to intercession. So there weren't a lot of people on campus. So it gave us some time to adjust things. And we still had a lot of adjusting to do, a lot of furniture and the layout of the library to decide on. This was a puzzle. We had pieces to put together. We had space for, we had to decide where the desks and where would supplies go. Electrical outlets. We did want to be responsive to our students, utilizing the space for their studying and research needs. Printers, of course, up to the beginning of the spring semester, we were still, our printers were still not set up. So we were, again, panicking, at least I was. But it was to be under. I understand that other departments were moving also into their new space. So our IT people were really busy. They were really swamped with work. So it was to be understood. But at the same time, we wanted to be ready for the start of the new spring semester. Again, we have limited space. We couldn't. The library. We're going from 90 to 100 computers, being the one place on campus known for their computer availability. We had to go down to a very limited number. And of course, furniture status, that we'll get to that in a future slide. But we did get a lot of questions, and not to be surprised, it wasn't surprising to get questions about the bookstore, because even though the bookstore had closed a few months prior, people at the beginning of the prior semester had gotten a lot of their books from that space. So when they were coming back, or when they wanted to return stuff, they were coming to us and asking, "Are you guys the bookstore? What happened to the bookstore?" We got that. If I had a nickel for every time I was asked if I was the bookstore, I'd be a rich man. But we had flyers, we had stuff, we had FAQ flyers in place to distribute to them. So we could refer them to the mortonshop.com website so they could do all their shopping online. This is, you saw the bare minimum that we had when those, the ranges were starting to be put into place. Well, eventually we filled them up. But when we filled them up, we were just trying to meet that December 10th deadline. So we were putting those books in all kinds of different spaces, because the main priority at that point was just to empty out the prior space. So a lot of this, when we put the books onto these shelves, they were not in order. They were not into A to Z Library of Congress order. We had to move things around again. What was a little bit easier was our DVDs and our family literature collection. You see that on the left-hand side there. We did not have a large collection of those, so we didn't have to do any weeding. So those just went onto those shorter spaces there. We had to, we put some comfortable seating around. We had to, of course, determine where trash cans and recycling bins would go. On the right-hand side, I have it circled here. We were limited to 4 desktop computers, and yeah, you heard me right, 4 desktop computers. I mentioned the electrical outlet situation. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of outlets for students to set up shop here to do. I mean, they do come in, they do use their laptops, but hopefully their battery is charged, because we do not have a lot of space for them to charge their portable devices. But we did put some tables together where they could set up shop to do some work with other people or by themselves. The one important thing was that we got access to 3 computer labs on campus, which are staffed by library assistants, which we could direct our students to, because yeah, a lot of times they're not going to find the appropriate space in this in our current space to do their work. So fortunately, we had 3 computer labs we directed people to, and that as the semester is going on, and we're proceeding towards the end of it, actually, students are becoming more aware of what their options are to access PCs. These are the north and the south ends of the library. Printing is still a major thing here at our library at Morton College. We went from 3 printers down to 2. At present, we don't have our color printing, but rest assured, we are directing people to those computer labs who want to print in color. We also wanted to make things easier for students. So instead of them, they were required to load funds onto cards, and they had to have specific, denominations like singles or fives, and they had to fumble around a lot, and it wasn't always the smoothest process. So we decided to eliminate that process and make printing free of course, with limits in place as to the amount of pages they could print at a time, but that helped cut down a lot of frustration and a lot of us having to mediate and helping people set up their printing. On the right-hand side, you'll see the new circulation desk. Of course, this was already in place here at the bookstore. This was where the cash registers were set up. So all we had to do is put our PCs on there, put some signage saying who we are, some flyers, and of course, the usual supplies you'll find at a circ desk: pencils, pens, staplers, tape. So we got that in place, and we, of course, being the COVID era, we put a plexiglass that would create a barrier between students and our staff, and of course the ever-present hand sanitizer, which is important. There was a situation where we didn't know, because again, there was a lot of movement. Other departments were going from one part of campus to the other. We thought we might be losing this desk, and we heard about that at the beginning of the semester, which kind of, again, at least for me, since I'm a circulation librarian, I would be sitting here, I was kind of freaked out, but eventually things worked out. Eventually, we kept this space, this desk. We don't know if this is going to accompany us to our new space, but it's doing the job so far. Some other vantage points. We brought over what we call the high boy tables. So they weren't used a lot in the beginning. People have gotten more used to them. They are situated at a space where you could kind of look out and people watch, as this is a kind of a heavily trafficked area. People going from the cafeteria to classrooms, so people can just sit out and watch as other students walk by. There's kind of a view of the outdoors, the courtyard there. So it's not like we're cut off from the outside world. We also created a homely environment by bringing over our beautiful plants, and of course, there's books there. These are our oversized folio books, so if people want to look at some nice artwork, they're like coffee table books. They're really big and have beautiful paintings, renderings. People can do that as well. On the right-hand side, we did a lot of the stacks. The books were in ranges, right, one next to the other. But we also decided to open up some space to allow for tables. And these are used every day. These are really popular, these 3 tables here. Again, not a lot, but what can we do? They're between our print periodical collections here. Office space, again, not glamorous. And I'm sure a lot of you do not have glamorous office spaces, but of course, due to our circumstances, we had to fit into a tight space. On the left-hand side, these are where our 2 reference librarians work on a daily basis. When they leave for the day, another reference librarian uses one of these computers. Cabinets, usual office stuff in here. What's not seen is we had some space to bring in our shredder and also a fax machine, which, yeah, at Morton College, we do get people still asking to fax over documents. So we were able to fit all that in. On the right-hand side, we have the office space. This was an empty hallway, basically, and it got cleaned up for us. This is where our technical services staff does a lot of the processing for incoming materials. And of course, we have supplies, some more cabinets for supplies, boxes. I know I've still brought a lot of my junk that I haven't cleared out yet that is just sitting there. What's not visible when I took this picture to my left is we had enough space to put a refrigerator and a microwave. And that table in the foreground, yeah, it's like one at a time, but people can, one staff member at a time can use that table to have their lunch, to take a break. I'm at the circulation desk a lot, so when I need to come in the back for a webinar or a Zoom meeting, that computer in the middle there is what I use. So we had some successes. I think we could pat ourselves on the back for meeting. Of course, for me, the most impressive success was to meet the December 10th deadline, and our staff put in a lot of effort into doing that. So if you want to applaud right now, go ahead and please do so. I think we maintained our top-notch student services, and how did we do that? Well, we retained our normal hours of operation. So this was again in the middle of the surge, the Omicron variant surge. So I noticed a lot of other community college hours of operation were, a lot of them were closing at 5 or 6 o'clock. We decided to keep our hours as before. So to provide our students with that space. So we closed at 9 p.m. from Monday to Thursday. Shorter hours on Fridays, but we were open on Saturdays. So again, even during a time where a lot of colleges were limiting their hours, we decided to keep our hours as open as we could. I mentioned before the 3 computer labs that are staffed by library staff. So not only can students go up there if they need help with setting up a Word document or something to do with software and also how to print, but we also have staff who could do the basic ready reference questions for library questions. Printing, I said before, was made easier. It was nice to be acknowledged by our facilities department for our work. I don't think anybody, in fact, our administrators had built in some lag time because I think maybe they anticipated that we wouldn't make the deadline. So they said, oh, you'll have several weeks before more to do that, but we didn't need those weeks. We were able to meet the deadline. And so we got some commendations, and it was good to be appreciated on campus. We resumed lending through Primo VE on February 2nd. So we were kind of offline to our iShare partners for a couple of months, but as a circulation librarian, it's good to know that we're back in the business of resource sharing. Our catalog cleanup is ongoing. So it's a lot of work, and kudos to Rosalie and Heidi for continuing to do that and keep our holdings accurate. But I think it's something like 14 or 15,000 item records. So, and there, of course, with a number that large, there's going to be some anomalies to deal with. So we're still working on that. And we finally got our displays back up and running. So we're back in the display business. And it's National Poetry Month in April. So this is our first display in the new space. And a lot of people at first they thought they were in a time machine, and it was December because it looked like we were celebrating Christmas, but it's actually a poetry. Get it, poetry? So we decided to use our space to highlight some historic and contemporary poets and their works there. So hopefully that'll attract attention as students are walking in that hallway going from the cafeteria to classrooms, and that might spark some attention and have them come in and ask us questions and check out books. We're finally into tier 3, the future. For our purposes, we see the future as starting in the summer and stretching well to the fall and beyond. As of a couple of weeks ago, when I took this picture on the left, this is what our new space looks like. As you see, a lot of construction still ongoing. This is, again, the second floor of what used to be, in 2016, a library space full of shelves of books. Eventually, this space, if we are to go by the artist rendering, which you see on the right side of your screen, is to become a learning hub. I mean, we might be having an identity crisis at the moment. I don't know if we're going to be, if we're going to still be the library, or we're going to be renamed or rebranded as the learning hub. But this is the entrance to our space. This is what it's going to look like. So going through that door to the right is going to be the new circulation desk. And again, we don't know what's going to be behind that circulation desk. We were hoping we might have some compact shelving for our collection, but things are up in the air right now. It might just be office space. It might be space where cubicles are set up or supplies are placed, but that remains to be seen. So this space, you see, it looks a little bit more professional now because, as I said, our future space is a temporary workspace for several departments on campus. So that's how it looks like at present. You see all those rooms that are currently staff offices for people in like financial aid and other departments. Well, those are supposed to be group study rooms. And we have about 5 or about 7. I think we have 5 regular size rooms, and 2 of the bigger size rooms are going to be our office space, or I'm sorry, our group study rooms. And looking at on the left-hand side, kind of deep on the left side of that picture, there's going to be some kind of construction. We don't know if that's going to be turned into office space or if it's going to be group study rooms. We just don't know at this point. But on the right side, as far as what the future, if I gaze into the future, this is what it looks like. There's going to be space for computers. We're going to be quadrupling our number of computers from our current 4 to about 16. There's going to be some space on the side there for, and hopefully, of course, we'll have the electrical outlets in place so students can set up their laptops. There's going to be some open space where students can kind of just hang out, talk to each other, work in groups. Upcoming plans, finishing up here the summer and fall of 2022. What we know for sure is our future in the near future involves more weeding, packing, and moving. What we would like to see in the new space is the compact shelving. Eventually, if we do not get that, I think we're probably going to lose probably from what the current books we have, we might be keeping only about 1/3 of them. So yeah, our physical books will be taking another big hit. Of course, we want workspace for cubicles. We want some space for ourselves to work comfortably. We want a break room because we're used to that from the old space. And that we would like all the group study rooms, including those 2 bigger offices I mentioned. Again, we don't know what those are going to be. Are they going to be turned into like a mini conference rooms or maybe a space for other staff on campus? We just don't know at this point, but we would like to exercise control over them. So the main takeaways here, to advocate for what you need. It's important to kind of make your presence and your opinions well known, and to not shy away from those tough conversations. We know that everything that we advocated for will not be met, but we know if we do not take a stand, that we have no chance of getting anything. So got to be strong and advocate for what you need. Market your value and relevance to the institution. Make sure you have a good story of why you matter. And for this, I encourage you to work with other departments on campus. So you have advocates, you have allies when things come like this at you. Student success is very important. You have to keep that in mind, of course. And we do that by embracing the digital. We don't have a choice in the matter, but we know our younger generation, Generation Z of digital natives, they expect things to be easily accessible right here and now. And finally, when the job is done, treat yourself. A lot of stress during COVID, especially. It's good to kind of commiserate with your coworkers, to bounce ideas off one another, to empathize, to support each other. And the final day at the old space, our interim director, Guillermo, brought over some nice donuts and coffee, which sure hit the spot. And go out for Thai food with your coworkers. Of course, it wasn't just donuts and coffee. We wanted to continue the conversation and to continue to support each other. So yeah, as a team, we went out and we enjoyed some good Thai food. I want to thank for the blood, sweat, and tears exhibited over the last few months our library staff. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. I also took care to include our 2 student assistants, George and Brenda. But yeah, thank you from the bottom of my heart to Mary, Michael, Kathy, Guillermo, Alex, Michael, Heidi, Rosalie, and Charmaine. If you want more information, again, I'm glad Guillermo and Heidi are here. Hopefully they've been answering the chat. I've been kind of speeding through this. I had so much. We have about 10 minutes. If you have any other questions, I'm going to start checking in on the chat. But also, if you want to email me, that's my email on the screen there. Or if you want to email any of us, we have a group email, which you can send an email to one of us and we'd respond to your concerns about the move or any questions you might have to reference@morton.edu. So let's see here. Okay, I think it was called the vendor thrift bookstores. Yeah, thrift, I believe is
Thrift books. I think
books.
thrift books, something like that, yeah.
And we had experience with them because again, we had to clear out a lot of books back in 2016. So I think it's Thrift Books is the name of the vendor. Let's see, Ashton. I think Guillermo answered that. But yeah, we, if I don't have to see another Home Depot box in my life, I'd be happy at this point. So no, we were putting those on trucks, and luckily we had enough trucks to keep us going to do the back and forth from one space to the next. So. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? I'm trying to read through this. I think Guillermo and Heidi, did you answer any, or are there any that were specifically for me?
Tom, if you just want to, Guillermo had answered this, but Sam had asked if we got any say in the decisions. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that or not.
Well, we like I mentioned about going to the new space, we did have kind of the decision-making authority to determine what goes where, to determine what we would look like. But as far as the big overall picture, we did not have a say into like saying no, we want to stay here, and the ones we want to stay in our current space. I mean, that was kind of a foregone conclusion, and that this was kind of an idea in the making for several years. COVID, I think, fastened or quickened that decision. But again, from March until October, we had shared documents and emails with administrators, which, because I don't know if it was they were busy, they were also going through a transition. The associate provost had resigned. We did not get a lot of clear communication from them. So it's tough. It's an ongoing battle to make our voices well heard and respected on campus. But I guess I should say we had decisions on kind of the small stuff, but on the bigger stuff, even though we made our thoughts and opinions known, we kind of got a little bit of a quiet treatment there.
Go ahead.
Can I say something really quick?
Sure.
I just want everybody in this presentation to understand how emotional this is. It's not easy when you're fighting administration or fighting for things that you believe in, and you're getting shut down at every turn. So exactly what Tom says. If you think or you're about to go through this, please reach out to us. We can give you advice. But the most important thing is to rely and support one another when it comes to this, because without all of us doing this together, I don't think we could have done it.
Applause for me. Ashton, yeah, of course, this was a team effort. Yeah, in a lot of respects, it brought us closer together. Like I said, we bonded over going through this. Decisions had to be made. Time off had to be taken. There were staff absences. We had to cover for one another. You know, a lot of physical labor had to be put in. So if I couldn't lift this box, I needed somebody else's help to lift with me. So as far as internal conflict, you know,
There's a lot of back and forth.
we're adults. We communicate clearly and openly with one another. Again, with us, you know, we work well as a team. It's, you know, the internal conflict is mostly between us and administration, because sometimes there's aspects when we feel like we're not being heard. So again, I do not have a solution to that. I think that would require people that are strong strong personality, strong advocates for standing up and making our value well known to the community.
So to answer the question that's in the chat right now about serving community patrons, since we were still in COVID, we were not open to the community at the time. We started to open, I want to say mid-semester, but even then, were we still doing appointments?
I think so.
I think we
I
were
think
still
so.
doing appointments to use computers and things like that, unless you were a student. You still had to show a student ID to get into the library and to be in the library at the time. So to answer your questions, we really weren't serving community patrons at the time.
And again, we are open to the community now, but again, there's lack of space. I think sometimes people come in and see what they've got to work with, and they just turn around and they might go to another wider space on campus, or the cafeteria, or to one of those computer labs. So it's been a challenge. We're trying to get through it as much as we can. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be in our new space and we'll be settled there. We have to have a lot of conversation again. What are our core aspects? What services do we want to provide? Where do we want to take a tough stance on? As far as, you know, this is a line we're drawing in the sand. We have to have this stuff in place to provide the best possible services, because student success is our number one priority. And thank you for the comment, Angelina and Ashton.
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments or questions before we close up?
I guess I don't see any. Yeah, great job, Thomas. I thought it was a wonderful presentation. Again, you can reach Thomas at the morton.edu email address, or the reference at morton.edu email address. This presentation will be sent out to the listserv, so you can view the recording and view the slides. So thanks all for attending, and hope to see you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Incredible. You guys obviously have a really close connection, and that is yeah. I think everybody needs to see this and have a deeper appreciation for their staff and for the facilities that they have at their disposal, because this is unbelievable. And the way you guys did it with so much grace, incredible.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think you're gonna start crying, Lois.
I am. It is emotional to see this, because it is. You guys have been through a trauma. You know, you've been doing
And as I
you understand
mentioned,
what it feels like.
and as I mentioned, this wasn't the best, you talk about disruptive, especially during COVID times. And maybe I didn't emphasize this enough, but in the